So who the hell is Emil Bove, and why should you care about Emil Bove? So Emil Bove is Donald Trump's nominee for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. That is a circuit that covers Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the Virgin Islands. It is also a position, I think, that Donald Trump and his ilk hope will catapult Emil Bove onto the Supreme Court someday. Now, let's talk about his background, because when you hear about his background, it'll tell you exactly why you should care about Emil Bove. So Emil Bove starts out as a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and he is so disliked for his management style, for his temper tantrums, for his unethical conduct, that the Federal Public Defender's Office, when they learn that he is being considered for promotion, they write a letter to the supervisors in the office to say, you should think twice about this. Maybe you don't know how he is representing himself in the office, but it is not a way that you should want to be represented. So the Public Defender's Office complains about him, but it's not just the Public Defender's Office. He's supervising a case in federal court, a case in which the prosecutors he's supervising withhold what's called Brady material. That is exculpatory material, or material that would tend to help prove the innocence of a potential defendant. So the attorneys under his supervision are withholding this material from the defense, material they're legally required to provide. They misrepresent this to the court. They conceal it. And Bove is forced to admit that they essentially lied to the court. So the court admonishes this prosecution, led by Emil Bove, for its unethical, unprofessional conduct. But it's not even just the court, in this case he's supervised, or just the attorneys on the other side of the courtroom. It's attorneys in his own office that, once he is given this appointment, petition to have him removed from supervision because of the poor management capabilities and his ill performance in that role. Now they consider it. They make the decision to demote him. He makes a plea not to be demoted, and because of other factors going on at the office, including not wanting it to appear that his demotion was the result of this admonition by the court, they decide not to demote him. So that's the background of Emil Bove, the prosecutor. So Bove leaves the office. He then joins a law firm with Todd Blanche. And he and Todd Blanche become, guess what, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyers. So Todd Blanche, now the number 2 at the Justice Department, Emil Bove, an acting top attorney at the Justice Department, but the two of them, before the Trump administration, go to work for Donald Trump as his criminal lawyers. They represent him in New York during the prosecution of Donald Trump for the Stormy Daniels payments, the violation of campaign ethics laws, and the filing of false business reports. And Trump is convicted dozens of times on felony charges. They also represent him in his federal cases. And there, Bove gets a big assist from the Supreme Court of the United States, which basically delays the prosecution of Donald Trump in federal court, delays the prosecution involving his incitement of insurrection on January 6th, delays the Trump prosecution involving the storage of classified materials, the obstruction of justice at Mar-a-Lago, to the point where he can't be prosecuted before he becomes president. And they also give him immunity so broad that, as a practical matter, he will probably never be prosecuted for those crimes. So that's Bove's experience, one of being a poor, disreputable prosecutor, another of representing Donald Trump's criminal cases. So, of course, Donald Trump makes his criminal lawyers the top people in the Justice Department. Pam Bondi, criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump, she becomes AG. Todd Blanche becomes number 2. Bove becomes acting, essentially number 3 in the Justice Department. And then we get into the even more serious misconduct of Emil Bove. So probably most notable in the serious misconduct of Emil Bove in his acting capacity in the Justice Department is his ordering his former office, the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, ordering them to dismiss the corruption case against the mayor of New York, Eric Adams. Now, this was a serious corruption matter for which a grand jury returned an indictment charging the mayor with multiple felony counts of serious corruption offenses. There was no suggestion of prosecutorial misconduct. There was no hint of a lack of evidence, but nevertheless, Bove orders his former office to dismiss the case. Now, why does he do this? He does this because Eric Adams essentially tells the Trump administration, hey, I can be useful to you on immigration policy. And Bove orders the prosecutors to drop the case and makes it pretty clear why, that he will be useful to them on immigration enforcement. It's this quid pro quo. So the U.S. Attorney at the time, Danielle Sassoon, writes a lengthy letter back to the Justice Department, to Pam Bondi, talking about how she's been ordered by Bove to make this case go away and how she cannot ethically do so. She cannot in good faith represent before the court that the interest of justice would be served by dismissing this case. In fact, she says this quid pro quo that is suggested in this corrupt bargain, she says that she can't go forward with this because it would violate Department of Justice policy, it would violate her oath of office, and she refuses. And so she's gone, resigned or forced to quit. So they then move on to other people in the office to try to get them to dismiss the case. One of the other prosecutors, Hagen Scotton, who, like Danielle Sassoon, impeccable Federalist Society credentials, they had both clerked for very conservative judges and justices on the Supreme Court. Hagen, likewise, will not move to dismiss the case against the mayor of New York. He's not even asked, but he proactively says, don't come to me to do this. Anyone should be able to tell the president, this is a terrible idea. You just can't do this. You can't give special treatment to politicians who are favorable to you on policy matters. That's not how the justice system works. And what he says, I think, is really powerful. He says, now, I'm sure that you can find some coward or some fool to dismiss this case, but that was never going to be me. Well, that coward and that fool is Emil Bove. And Emil Bove kept working his way down the line until he himself, in concert with others, had to take the step of dismissing that case against Eric Adams. And one of the other improprieties that these two prosecutors who quit rather than engage in that unethical conduct pointed out was the Trump administration was seeking to dismiss the case against Eric Adams without prejudice, meaning that they could bring it back at any time, meaning that they wanted to have that case hang over the mayor's head so that if he stepped an inch out of line, they could bring that case down on him like a ton of bricks. That violates every tenet of justice to abuse the system that way, but that's Emil Bove at work. Now, similarly, Bove ordered a different prosecutor, this time in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., to announce a federal investigation or suggest there was a federal criminal investigation of a bank that was holding funds that were meant for environmental grants under the Inflation Reduction Act. The prosecutor in that case, Denise Chung, said she could not in good faith suggest there was a criminal case where there was no basis for a criminal case. Nevertheless, Bove insisted, and she was gone from the Justice Department. So Bove, willing to use the department as a sword to go after things the president didn't like that environmental grant program, and make up a criminal investigation where there was no probable cause, and to dismiss corruption cases against someone who was useful to the president. Beyond that, Bove fired a group of FBI agents who had worked on the January 6th investigations. And what's more, he demanded that he get the names of everyone that worked on the January 6th investigation, all the FBI agents who were assigned to that investigation. Indeed, and ironically, if Emil Bove asked the same thing of the Department of Justice, prosecutors and not just the FBI agents, his own name would have been on that list, because Emil Bove also worked on the January 6th prosecutions before he joined Donald Trump's criminal defense team. So these are the actions of Emil Bove in the Justice Department. And why is Donald Trump looking to him now in the Court of Appeals? Because he wants someone who will do his bidding on the Court of Appeals. He wants someone who will unquestionably, and without concern for the morality or immorality, the ethics or lack of ethics, the lawfulness or the lawlessness, will do and order and opine the way Donald Trump wants. Donald Trump is already pissed at many of his judicial nominees for actually upholding the law and striking down his lawless decisions, his lawless immigration orders, his lawless federalizing of the National Guard, his lawless impoundment of congressional funds. And so he wants utter sycophants on the Court of Appeals, and he hopes ultimately to have this sycophant on the Supreme Court of the United States. He is already deeply dissatisfied with Amy Coney Barrett because she won't decide every case the way Donald Trump wants it decided, even though she is very right-wing. So he wants just a complete and utter sycophant like Emil Bove on the Supreme Court